We all know that the three of you have been diving also, not only in the Philippines, but in other destinations. For you, what sets the Philippines apart from other dive destinations? And we could also ask this, what made you fall in love with the dive sites in the Philippines? Let's start with you, Lynn.
Well, I have to tell you how I got to the Philippines, if we've got time. I was in Guam. I could get there on my passes for $57. And I got invited on a medical mission by Dr. Espeldon, whose brother was commander of SAUESCOM, Sabutu, and Simunal. I mean, what a trip. And I had gone up to Commander Espeldon and I asked him if we could dive and if he'd put tanks on for me. So he did. And he sent 7 Navy frogmen with me. And so I would get in the water and they would swim quadrants and they'd be out. I mean, what a trip. And I had gone up to Commander Espeldon and I asked him if we could dive and if he'd put tanks on for me. So he did. And he sent 7 Navy frogmen with me. And so I would get in the water and they would swim quadrants and they'd be out in 20 minutes. So I'd get the whole ocean to myself. And then they'd do shooting practice. And then especially in Holo, I thought, oh, I better make this a long dive. It might be my last one. Anyway, at the end of that trip, I went to Anilau. And I decided in my scientific terms that it was littered with the guy, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that. And I mean, I wrote off the whole Caribbean in '88. And it's just the people, because I'm never harassed. I'm treated as an equal. And I mean, they just do so much for you and they're fabulous. Well, and now it's scientifically proven to be the most biodiverse in the world. So, I mean, what more could I want?
It's the life underwater and the people. Wow. Yeah, how about you, Gatsi?
Well, it's kind of, the diving in the Philippines happened by default, right? Because I live here. And for the first 10 years of my diving, I never left the Philippines. I just dove around the Philippines. I didn't even travel. Well, I was still very young, right? So I really couldn't just say, hey, I want to go here and there, right? But one of the things that then when I started diving, and then I would, outside of the Philippines, I would start comparing it. And I mean, definitely for me, the Philippines, it's because you've got other places in the world that have big animals, right? And the Philippines is, we have our spots for big animals, but for me, the thing that really stands out here is the coral that we have in most of our areas. And I also like diving in clear water, in warm water, right? So all those things make it very attractive, the diving in the Philippines, and also it makes me want to even just explore more of the Philippines. Of course, I've got other places in the world just for specific things to go to, right? But the Philippines for me is still my number one dive destination, right? And I'm lucky enough to be able to live here.
I'd like to add to what Lynn said about the people. And the people here are going to spoil you. So what I mean about that is when I first dove abroad, I won a trip to Palau. And when I first got there, they dropped us off in the dive shop and they said, okay, those are your tanks, those are your weights, that's your boat. We'll see you on there in 20 minutes. Very different from when you come here. They pamper you. They carry all your stuff there. If you'd let them, they would put on your dive gear for you. It's insane. But and that's just above the water. When you go diving and they guide you through and show you all this cool stuff, it's a real treat, So let's say last year I was in South Africa and that was very close to like a military exercise to go diving there. We would bring in the rib that's the boat. We'd bring it into the swells. We'd hold it up in the swells, and the captain would come up. He would shout to everybody, "Get on!" And we'd scramble on board, and he timed for the swells with his engine and go through it, and it was just big and bumpy. It's like it's not for everybody out there. So, but down here in the Philippines, it's like Gutsy said, it's clear, it's calm, it's nice and warm. There's a lot of stuff to see around.